Sometimes life breaks in such a silent way that you do not even hear the moment it happens. One day you simply wake up and realize the pieces around you are no longer where they used to be. The plans that once felt solid now crumble like dust. The people who promised permanence drift away like fading echoes, and in that quiet collapse, a dangerous thought appears, that you are alone, unprepared, and powerless. But the ancient Stoics would argue the opposite. They believed that when everything falls apart, what truly breaks is the illusion of control, not the human spirit. And they insisted that the moment of collapse is never the end. It is the beginning of clarity. Welcome to Stoic Valor, a place where every reflection strengthens your inner steel, and every word reminds you that resilience is a choice, whispered from within. When the world begins to fall apart, the Stoics invite you to step into an uncomfortable truth. You were never meant to control the external events, only your responses. Epictetus repeated this idea with a kind of gentle ruthlessness. He said that suffering comes not from the things that happen, but from the judgments we form about them. So when life feels like it is collapsing, it might actually be your expectations collapsing, those fragile images of how things should be. The Stoics didn't reject pain. They confronted it, naming it, studying it, understanding it, and they believe that the first rule when everything falls apart is to return to the inner citadel, the part of you that no event can touch. Marcus Aurelius called this place the fortress within. He wrote that no matter what storms arrive, the mind can remain untouched if it refuses to grant the external world the power to disturb it. This was not indifference, but discipline. It was the art of holding steady, even when every emotion begs you to lose control. And he insisted that strength is not proven when life is peaceful. Strength is revealed when everything is uncertain. In this way, collapse becomes a test of character, not a sentence. The Stoics would say that adversity introduces you to yourself. Séneca approached the same idea from another angle. He believed that humans overestimate their fragility and underestimate their capacity for endurance. He argued that disaster feels unbearable only because we face it unprepared. Yet he encouraged his students to rehearse adversity, not out of pessimism but out of confidence. When you imagine loss, instability, or hardship, you do not invite them, you simply remind yourself that you can survive them. He believed this mental rehearsal makes life less frightening and collapses less devastating. If you train your mind like a warrior, when life falls apart, you are not shocked, you are ready. In the modern world, authors like Ryan Holiday echo these ancient truths. They insist that obstacles are not merely roadblocks but raw material for strength. They encourage you to see adversity as a sculptor sees stone, something to carve, shape, and transform. The Stoic mindset is not about pretending the collapse doesn't hurt. It is about refusing to let the hurt define you. The pain is real, but so is your power. The world can take many things from your relationships, stability, comfort, but it cannot take your ability to choose your response. When everything around you falls apart, your instinct might be to fight, to cling, to resist the flow of events. Yet the Stoics believe that resistance to fate often causes more suffering than the event itself. They describe the wise person as someone who moves with the current, not against it. This does not mean surrendering in weakness. It means adapting with wisdom. Mark Manson describes this as choosing what truly deserves your energy. When you stop pouring your strength into battles you cannot win. You free yourself to rebuild where you can. But perhaps the most radical Stoic idea is this: collapse can be a teacher disguised as chaos. It tells you what was unstable. It reveals what was never truly in your control. It shows you where you depended too heavily on the external world and people, outcomes, or illusions of permanence. When the pieces fall, you see which ones still matter, and which ones were merely distractions. In that sense, collapse is purification. It burns away what was unnecessary so that what is essential can be rebuilt with intention. James Clear speaks about this in terms of identity. When everything falls apart, the habits that once defined you may no longer make sense. But this also means you are free to choose new ones. Collapse creates space, and space creates opportunity. In Stoicism, destruction and rebirth are not opposites, they are partners. The breakdown makes room for a stronger foundation. The end of a chapter becomes the quiet beginning of another. This is why the Stoics believe that the moment of collapse is the most important moment of your life. Because it is the moment when you decide whether you will be ruled by fear or shaped by wisdom. It is the moment when you realize that even if the world outside you breaks, the world within you can remain unshaken. And this inner calm, this inner discipline, becomes the anchor that keeps you steady while everything else shifts like sand beneath your feet. The Stoics believed that collapse was not a sign of failure, but a sign of awakening. They saw the unraveling of life as a mirror reflecting truths that comfort had been hiding. When everything falls apart, illusions die. First illusions of control, illusions of certainty, illusions of permanence. It is in this moment of raw exposure that the second Stoic rule emerges. You must learn to distinguish between what depends on you and what does not. Epictetus repeated this distinction endlessly because he knew the human mind naturally clings to what is slipping away. But he taught that true freedom begins the moment you place your effort only where your influence truly exists. When collapse comes, it pulls this truth into the light. You cannot stop what is already broken, but you can always choose how you rebuild. To the Stoics, This separation between the controllable and the uncontrollable was not just a philosophical idea. It was a daily practice. Marcus Aurelius trained his mind to face every difficulty by asking a simple question: is this within my power? If it was, he acted with discipline and clarity. If it wasn't, he released it without bitterness. He understood that holding on to what you cannot influence is the fastest way to drown in your own suffering. Collapse demands this clarity. It forces you to abandon the illusion that everything is up to you and return to the reality that only your judgments, choices, and actions are truly yours. Seneca pushed this even further. He insisted that misfortune often feels heavier because we try to carry both the weight of the event and the weight of our resistance to it. He compared this to being struck by a wave. The more you fight the water, the more violently it pulls you under, but when you allow yourself to float, you survive. In this sense, collapse teaches you the art of emotional buoyancy. Instead of exhausting yourself trying to control what is already slipping away, you learn to rise above it by accepting the truth you wish you could refuse. Seneca believed this acceptance was not resignation but courage. The courage to see life without distortion. Modern thinkers echo this truth. Ryan Holiday insists that adversity becomes unbearable only when we allow our internal chaos to match the external one. The Stoic approach is the opposite. Become the stillness within the storm. This stillness is not passivity. It is a strategic pause. It gives you the space to respond rather than react, to observe rather than be overwhelmed. In moments of collapse, the ability to pause becomes your greatest source of strength. Robin Sharma calls this the power of deliberate calm, reminding us that inner peace is not the absence of problems, but the mastery of perspective. This leads to the third Stoic rule: when everything falls apart, use adversity as a forge. Stoicism teaches that character is not built in comfort but carved in discomfort. Marcus Aurelius believed that obstacles shape the spirit as fire shapes metal. When something collapses in your life, a relationship, a project, a dream, the Stoic response is not to lament the loss but to ask, who must I become now? This question shifts your attention away from what is gone and toward what can grow. It transforms collapse into a sculptor's tool, shaping you with precision and purpose. Mark Manson, in his modern direct style, explains that life becomes more tolerable and even meaningful when you stop expecting it to be easy. When you accept that struggle is a natural part of existence, collapse loses its ability to terrify you. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me, you begin to ask, what can this teach me? This is not an escape from pain, but an elevation above it. The Stoics believed that you cannot always choose the events of your life, but you can choose the meaning you give them. And the meaning you choose determines whether you collapse inward or rise stronger. The fourth Stoic rule emerges naturally from this mindset: embrace impermanence. One of the deepest roots of human suffering is the expectation that things will last simply because we want them to. But the Stoics reminded themselves daily that everything changes, everything moves, everything fades. They practiced negative visualization not to be morbid but to remember the precious fragility of life. When everything falls apart, it is often because we believed without question that it never would. But impermanence is not an enemy. It is a teacher that whispers, cherish what you have, because you will not have it forever. Collapse is simply the moment this whisper becomes undeniable. James Clear adds a modern nuance to this truth by reminding us that identity, habits, and personal growth are never static. Every collapse is an invitation to update who you are. You are not the person you were before the loss, before the failure, before the unexpected storm. And that is not a tragedy. That is evolution. When life shatters, it gives you fragments that can be rearranged, redesigned, You get to decide what stays, what goes, and who you become. The Stoics would say that nothing is truly lost if something wiser is gained. Finally, the fifth Stoic rule comes into view. Remember that you have survived every collapse you once feared. Humans often believe that the pain of the present moment will break them, yet time and again they rise. This is not an accident. It is evidence of a deeper resilience woven into the human spirit. Stoicism teaches that you are stronger than your circumstances, not because you avoid pain, but because you learn to walk through it with dignity. Every collapse you endure sharpens your understanding of what truly matters and reveals strengths you never knew you possessed. The Stoics never promised that life would be easy. They promised that you would be capable. They promised that within you lies a steadiness that cannot be destroyed, only forgotten. And when everything falls apart, that inner steadiness becomes your lifeline, guiding you back to clarity, purpose, and strength. When everything falls apart, theory alone is not enough. You need practices you can hold on to. Mental tools that steady your breath when your thoughts feel like they are spiraling out of control. The Stoics believe that knowledge without action is like a sword left in its sheath, it cannot protect you. So they train the mind daily, not for moments of peace, but for moments of collapse. And it is in those moments that their teachings become your most reliable companion. Imagine a morning when you wake up and realize, the life you knew yesterday is no longer yours. A relationship ends without warning. A job you depended on evaporates overnight. A dream you nurtured for years suddenly dissolves. In these moments, the instinct is panic, the mind races, the chest tightens, and your thoughts become a storm. The Stoics taught that the first practical step is to interrupt this storm with presence. Focus on a single breath. Feel the air enter and leave your body. This is not a cliché. It is a reclaiming of your autonomy. When collapse hits, your breath becomes the doorway back to yourself. Epicteto suggested beginning every hardship with the phrase, "This is what I trained for," not as denial, but as empowerment. It reframes the moment from something happening to you into something happening for you to practice strength, clarity, and acceptance. In practical terms, this means shifting your mindset from victim to participant. You cannot always control the event, but you can control the training that follows. A second tool the Stoics relied on is writing, simple but powerful. Seneca believed that journaling clears the fog of emotion, giving shape to fears that otherwise remain unmanageable. When something falls apart in your life, take a few minutes to write down 3 things. What actually happened, what you fear it means, and what is still within your control. This simple act separates fact from interpretation, and interpretation from emotional distortion. Many modern thinkers, from James Clear to cognitive psychologists, confirm this. Writing restructures your mind, bringing order to inner chaos. A third practice is voluntary discomfort. This does not mean seeking pain, but strengthening the mind for it. The Stoics walked barefoot, slept on hard surfaces, fasted, or embraced the cold, not out of self-punishment, but out of preparation. Today, this can look like taking cold showers, sitting for a few minutes in silence without distractions, or intentionally doing something difficult each day. The purpose is simple, to remind yourself that you can tolerate discomfort, and therefore, you can tolerate the discomfort of collapse. You train your resilience before you need it at this punto del guión. Inserto exactamente lo solicitado. If this message is resonating with you, do not forget to subscribe to Stoic Valor, because here we do not just reflect, we transform. Now, back to your inner rebuilding. Imagine a person standing in the remains of their old life. Everything they depended on is gone. They feel small, fragile, and directionless. But then they remember the Stoic practice of the view from above. They close their eyes and imagine rising above their body, above their room, above their city, above the world, until their problems shrink into perspective. Marcus Aurelius used this method to remind himself that every hardship, no matter how overwhelming, is part of a much larger tapestry of existence. This practice does not minimize your pain, it simply liberates you from the illusion that the pain is the entire world. Another practical tool is identifying your next smallest step. When life collapses, you don't need to rebuild the entire structure at once. You only need to lay one stone. James Clear teaches that identity grows from repeated small actions. The Stoics would agree. One clear step, taken with intention, begins to rebuild the inner citadel. If your heart is broken, the next step might be making your bed. If your finances collapse, the next step might be writing down what resources remain. If your confidence shatters, the next step might be taking a short walk, proving to yourself that you can still move forward. Small steps are not insignificant. They are anchors that prevent you from drowning in helplessness. Micro, RELATOS, like this illustrates Stoic practice. Think of a sailor caught in a sudden storm at sea. The waves rise, the sky darkens, and the ship begins to break. A novice sailor panics, gripping the ropes with trembling hands, screaming into the wind. But a seasoned sailor breathes deeply, focuses on the immediate task before him, and moves with intention. He cannot stop the storm, but he can steer through it. This is the Stoic approach to collapse. Fear wastes energy, but focus saves lives. Finally, adopt the practice of intentional reflection each night. Seneca wrote that he questioned himself as a judge questions a witness. What did I do well? What did I do poorly? What can I improve tomorrow? This simple ritual transforms collapse into growth. Each night becomes a moment of honest self-review, turning pain into progress. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, you begin to rise again, not because collapse ended, but because you learned to stand within it. When everything falls apart, there is a moment often quiet, often overlooked, when you begin to see that collapse is not the end of your story but the clearing of ground for a new beginning. The Stoics believed that every downfall carries within it a seed of transformation, a hidden opportunity to return to what is essential. In the ashes of what once was, you discover the raw materials of who you can still become, and it is in this discovery that true strength begins to rise. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the mind holds more power than any external circumstance. He insisted that no matter how chaotic the world becomes, the inner citadel remains untouched unless you abandon it. When everything around you breaks, the greatest danger is not the event itself, but the moment you believe the collapse defines you. Yet the Stoics remind you, you are not the situation, you are the response. You are the clarity that emerges when panic subsides, the calm that rises when fear dissolves, the courage that appears when there is no one left to lean on but yourself. Seneca believed that the person who has conquered themselves can never truly be harmed. He meant that when your sense of identity no longer depends on fragile external things, collapse loses its ability to crush you. You become lighter, more adaptable, more resilient, You no longer cling to what is slipping away because you understand that your peace comes from within. And so when everything falls apart, instead of shattering, you bend. Instead of breaking, you rise. Instead of losing yourself, you find the deeper self that was hidden beneath layers of attachment and fear. Modern thinkers echo this ancient wisdom. Ryan Holiday reminds us that every obstacle carries its own instruction manual if we are willing to read it. James Clear suggests that identity is built, brick by brick, through small decisions made in difficult moments. Mark Manson explains that suffering becomes meaningful when you choose it consciously, when you decide what is worth enduring for the sake of who you want to be. And Robin Sharma says that difficult times introduce you to the version of yourself who has been waiting in silence to grow. Collapse is not an interruption of your path. It is part of the path, but do not misunderstand. The Stoics never pretended that collapse feels pleasant or that pain is easy to navigate. They did not advocate emotional suppression, but emotional mastery. They believed you should feel fully but not be ruled by what you feel. Sadness may visit you. Fear may attempt to paralyze you. Uncertainty may cloud your vision. Yet you can witness these emotions without drowning in them. You can sit with discomfort without being consumed by it. This ability to feel deeply without losing yourself is one of the highest forms of strength the Stoics ever taught. And so the rebuilding begins. Not with grand gestures, but with quiet choices. Each morning you wake, even if you feel heavy, is a step forward. Each breath you take with awareness is an act of courage. Each moment you refuse to surrender to despair is a declaration of your resilience. The Stoics believe that greatness is built moment by moment, decision by decision, especially in the periods when life seems most unbearable. Collapse becomes your teacher, your forge, your sculptor. It shapes you not into someone harder, but into someone wiser. There will come a day when you look back at the moment your life fell apart and realize that it was also the moment you began to rise. You will see that the pain carved space for growth, that the uncertainty taught you how to trust yourself, and that the loss stripped away what was never truly yours. You will see that falling apart was not the breaking of your life, but the breaking of illusion. The world did not end, you simply met a version of yourself you had never encountered before. The Stoics believe that the ultimate purpose of collapse is revelation. It reveals what you value. It reveals where you placed your identity. It reveals your strength. It reveals your softness. It reveals your priorities. And most importantly, it reveals your potential. The version of you that emerges from collapse is not the same one who entered it. You are deeper now, sharper now, more aligned now. You understand yourself better because you have faced a test. You did not choose, but did survive. So here is the final truth. When everything falls apart, something else quietly falls into place. You begin to understand that all along, you were training for this. Every challenge you overcame, every fear you confronted, every disappointment you endured, they were preparing you for the moment when you needed your inner strength the most. Collapse is not a punishment. It is a summons, a call to rise, a call to evolve, a call to return to yourself. And now, as this message reaches its end, ask yourself a single question. In the story of my life, who do I choose to become after the collapse? Not who you were before, not who others expect you to be, but who you decide to become when the dust settles and silence returns. That choice, the one you make in the aftermath's the most stoic choice of all. If these words helped you see your life with greater clarity, then help this message reach others who need it. Share it, reflect on it, and let it guide your steps as you rebuild. And if you found strength here today, subscribe to Stoic Valor so we may continue walking together toward a life forged with purpose, wisdom, and unshakable inner peace.